What up, guys? This is Bart, and welcome to Conspiracy Corner. And today we're going to talk about fake news. What is that, actually?
Fake news.
Does anybody know?
Antoine, take it away.
Or is it all fake?
Fake news? I mean, it's just when you start up a story that doesn't really have any backing to it. Like, it's always like hearsay, or it's journalism that...
At its finest?
at its finest.
What if a story does have backing to it? Like, say, the New York Times says that Bernie Sanders is a Russian agent, and that Putin wants Bernie Sanders to win.
But then the issue with that, too, is that, okay, it's technically that is real news, because the definition of news is just like new topics.
I thought the definition of news was north, east, west, and south.
I thought the definition of news.
Oh my god, I never thought about that.
Something that was somehow boiled in facts. Somehow it was built in facts.
But now you only need like...
The fact that information came out is a fact.
Right.
What's the difference now between rumor and news?
Right, exactly.
Did you hear about the rebuttal?
What was the rebuttal? Yeah.
So the New York Times had to retract that story.
But the damage has been done.
Did you hear about that?
No.
Did you hear about that?
No. Because I did hear that Bernie Sanders was accused of being a Russian spy.
He was.
Or working with.
But I never heard the retraction.
Same way that Donald Trump was, right? And then they had a whole fucking report that said, no, we didn't find that.
So the New York Times did that?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening to journalism today?
They did it to Trump a bunch of times too. They said, oh my God, we think that Trump Tower, this meeting that Don Jr. had with Russians was like about fucking how to fucking co-opt our election. It wasn't. It was about...
So when you think about CNN, Fox, everything, it just sounds like garbage to me. Like, I can't believe any of it.
I think a lot of it just kind of comes from the digital information age kind of thing, because
For being
so
first.
obviously like there are so many more sources for us to get news from, right?
Like BuzzFeed?
Well, like just from everywhere, just all these other like third party, Vice, if you want to like whoever you want to consider as your like news source or whatever. But there's a lot of other places that are putting out like news, right? So then the problem with all the traditional news sources and stuff, especially from like a lot of the writers there, it's like, how do we get clicks on our site that's going?
Yes.
Because we don't have subscriptions anymore.
Because of economic forces.
Yeah, because
They want to go viral as fast as possible.
Yeah, because it's not even like.
So it's a money thing.
Yeah, and it's like, and I get it to a certain extent because they need to pay the bills to stay open and to pay their writers and to have everything still work. But at the same time, that puts you into a weird kind of like, it's kind of like when 24/7 news happened. Now you need to fill all the shit with anything fucking happening.
So here's a scary thought: should we have a BBC where it's all paid for by the government, and then it's like government media?
I don't like that. I don't like that
Right.
either. Yeah, so
right.
BBC is government media?
It is.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought it was big black cock.
Well,
it should be.
in some circles.
It should be.
In some circles.
In some circles, yeah.
In some circles.
What
But
also sucks is whatever went viral first, if they retract it or if they have corrected information, they don't spend the same amount of energy making that part go as viral.
and because it's not as interesting, because like once you have the clicks, they have
It's not
clicks,
sensational.
Yeah. It's like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're not gonna like promote the like boring next news thing. You're just gonna move on to the next one to like try and like.
And they said
But it misinforms people and it sucks.
yeah,
real
that's what
quickly,
sucks.
just to be fair, they also said that Putin was trying to re-elect Trump, and then that came out as false.
Who?
Then the same day that they said that Putin wanted Bernie to get the nomination. So that's what's being put out, right, by establishments like the New York Times, and a lot of every fucking establishment does fake news. It's just about who's willing to retract it and say we fucked up,
Right.
and say it boldly and proudly, instead of just like maybe they delete a tweet that says the initial news. They should come out and say we retract. We fucking say this was a lie or this was wrong.
I did that. I had a apology retraction news.
You did.
Yeah.
Good job, Bart.
We're a responsible channel here.
Apology video ever on YouTube.
I didn't know that you retracted it, but good for you.
I did.
We should have got a streamy for that shit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine accepting a streamer?
They still won't accept the category of apology
best
videos.
apology video.
They should though. They need to.
Business Insider did this article where there's 6 corporations that control 90% of media in America. So if there's 6 media giants, right? That's kind of like a oligopoly or
Oligopoly.
Or monopoly, right?
It's an oligarchy.
monopoly is one corporation controlling it all.
Oh, right, but this is several
There's
media
6.
outlets.
That's an orgy.
It's an oligarchy because they all agree on the same information.
Yeah, it's oligarchy.
So do you know when this was allowed to happen? It was in the 90s during.
Well, yeah, in 1983 it says 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies.
Exactly.
But by 2011, that same 90% 90% is now controlled by 6. And these 6 companies are
Disney, of course.
General Electric, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS.
That change happened when Bill Clinton was in office. Not that it wouldn't happen when a Republican was in office. It just happened to happen when a Democrat was in office. But Democrats are supposed to be about breaking up monopolies and stopping media monopolies and shit.
So it happened regardless of who would have been president.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying when I say that oftentimes when you vote for somebody, you get the
You're
same
voting for the
result.
same person.
Right.
Well, and they also did away with the rule, I think, in the 90s or 80s. There was a rule that news had to cover at least 40% or 30% of the opposing party.
It's called the Fairness Doctrine.
Right, but then they lifted that. That's why we can have echo chambers
Reagan
now.
got rid of it in the 80s.
Yeah.
And now...
Why did he get rid of it?
The Republican argument is that it's not fair to have a show that is trying to participate in the free market that has to kowtow to some standard that is not what the show wants to be, right?
Oh, I see.
So like if JK News had to have a counterpoint every time that we said something, that would hinder our creativity on the show, right? If you had to just force
Which does make sense.
if you had to force fuck something like that into it, that's what the argument is. But then the counterpoint from a lot of the people, I'm not saying all Democrats agree, but there's a lot of Democrats who think that the Fairness Doctrine was a good idea because it allowed time for both sides. Whether it was like I have the Steve Greene show, and the Steve Greene show is aired in 300 markets, say, and my show is about I think that the corporate media fucking sucks. I'm supposed to have somebody who's like, I think the corporate media rocks for at least a certain percentage of my show.
That would make
So that comes
pornos
into my
way more
show.
interesting.
What is it?
That'd make pornos way more interesting. For every like 7 heterosexuals, you have 2 homosexuals in the corner of the frame.
I was thinking you have people fucking and then you have people telling you not to fuck.
Oh, I see.
They're standing there in the corner with the Bibles. I think that's more balanced.
That's fair and balanced.
I see. Yeah, but it would make it more.
They also control 70% of our cable TV.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Like Disney owns what? ESPN.
Disney owns
ABC.
ESPN.
ABC, Pixar, Miramax, Marvel Studios, but
Marvel,
they're not what
right.
we really have to worry about. I think we have to worry about more the media side, like Time Warner. They own CNN, HBO, Time, Warner Brothers. CBS owns Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, Jeopardy, 60 Minutes, and then Disney owns ABC, ESPN, Pixar, whatever.
So they all have their own individual thing. They have like their like network, their regular channel, and then they have like the sports, and then they have their.
But here's where it's
entertainment.
unfair. I think the owner of News Corp is the only right
Murdoch.
representative, and then everything else is basically left-leaning. So
Right.
then it's not really diverse in thought and representation. So I'm not even fighting for the right to have more representation or anything. I'm just saying that there's media bias because if right here it says 232 media executives control the information.
However, so what's really interesting about that to me is that Rupert Murdoch does not disagree about the war machine. Rupert Murdoch's company, Fox News, pushed the Iraq War and Afghanistan War harder than anybody I've ever seen. But who pushed that as well? ABC, CBS, NBC.
And within
the
News
Democrats
Corp,
in Congress.
we have Wall Street Journal, New York Post, which are left-leaning, right?
So there's this idea that there's a disagreement and Fox News is different than these other companies, but they're the fucking same.
It all kicks up to News Corp.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of shows inside of both networks that maybe disagree with the narrative. I know sometimes, not always, but sometimes, like a Tucker Carlson will challenge the war media stuff. And then I know that sometimes, not always, I've seen Rachel Maddow do that as well. But they always seem to, like, as a network, agree on the talking point.
And it goes worldwide, too, because it says here News Corp owns the top 3 newspapers in 3 continents. Wall Street Journal in the U.S., The Sun in Europe, and The Australian in Australia.
So original.
Pretty fucking crazy, yeah. Well, I mean, no one reads the newspaper anymore. I think it's probably like blogs and shit like that. Radio, they own radio. So back in the 90s, 1995, the FCC, they forbade the companies to own over 40 stations. But Clear Channel owns 1,200 stations.
Holy shit.
So there you go, right? So is there true fairness on Clear Channel? Like, probably not.
No, it seems like all of our media is controlled by this group of the Big Six. So in movies, the Big Six box office sales hit $7 billion in 2010. That's more than the next 140 studios. They only made 3.5 billion combined. So the big six, they made double what the 140 studios made.
Jesus.
Yeah. So there's a lot of money in media, right?
I wish we were owned by one of them. Maybe we get paid more too.
He also wouldn't be here. They would put someone that looks like Bart right there.
Fuck yeah.
Cardboard cutout.
And what's crazy is that all these mergers, they're saying here that they're just combining forces like crazy and kind of getting closer to a monopoly because they're all in collusion with each other.
They're already a monopoly, I think. Because you know why? Because every time you turn on any of these networks, they're all talking about the same things. Usually, right now, coronavirus and how it's going to fuck over all of us, even though it's so limited, it's so small. It's something that maybe you should take as a precaution. Wash your hands a lot, Antoine said.
Right.
But is it something that's going to fucking kill you? I mean, 23 million people died of the flu.
What did Dr. Mike said? He says,
I didn't watch his video.
be alert but not anxious or something like that. Something like that. Like, don't fucking freak out.
Oh, yeah.
Be healthy.
What's that, Sean?
John Oliver did a really good piece on coronavirus where he's like, you can worry, but you don't have to like scream and panic. But also, don't take it so chill. Just find that nice balance
Sure.
of like being
Don't
alert.
be that chill about Corona.
And see, even that is a challenge to what the media is saying about it. Because if you turn on every fucking channel, it's like coronavirus.
Panic.
Holy fuck. Did you know that 3 people died in America or whatever? It's here.
And it's working because Costco is getting emptied out every day.
Getting fucked
More
hard.
people die of car accidents every day.
Yes.
So, but nobody is like, oh my God, I can't get in my car.
You know what it is to me, like the comparison between car and airplane, where people are like, "Oh man, I'm so about being on an airplane." It's like you're more likely to die on your drive to the airport than being on an airplane. Same with the coronavirus. Like you're more likely to die of the flu than you are the coronavirus. But then you have this whole stigma of this other thing that it doesn't even apply.
Exactly. That's the way the news is taking these details and spinning it to cause this panic. If it bleeds, it leads.
Gives you clicks.
Yeah, and it clicks.
I saw a guy die on his motorcycle today, pretty much.
Damn.
When I passed by, there's no way that guy's alive. There was a red stripe on the road.
Ooh, Jesus.
And it was gnarly as fuck. And the cops did that swivel thing where you stop, you have to stop and sit there forever.
Yeah.
And then when I was like bitching a storm up, and then when I actually passed by, I was like, oh fuck.
That's how fucking serious it is.
Yeah.
I do think, though, in the States, we have a really irresponsible media in how it divides the citizens and the people here. Only because by traveling, you don't feel the tension within the citizens and the racial tension and the class tension and all that stuff. But in the States, I feel like they're ready to, like, set off. And I think it's the media's fault not being responsible for, you know, their clicks and their greed and whatever. It goes and it kind of hurts the I don't want to say nationalism, but it's like the idea of togetherness. Like they do the divide and conquer really well out here in the States.
Better than anyone.
Yep.